Oh, yes, ice breaking. Make a game. Yeah, make games. It's good. Mm-hmm. So, so what about this teacher? Let's say you're a teacher. Tell the gunner story. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, or maybe what usually cost you to be in his position, right? So, why did this happen to you? Do something interesting, right? Ask them to go to the bed. Oh, maybe bathroom. Not bedroom, maybe, right? You don't want them to go to sleep. Yes. Tell funny story. Yes. That's a good way to break the ice as well. Make a game. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Bored, right? So even we as teachers, right, we might get bored. So not just students, even the teachers. So, all right. Yes, make jokes. Very, very nice. Good. Okay. So let's keep going. So at least we are in the right mindset right now. So we know what's causing this to happen to both the student side and also us as teachers, right? So let's take a look what we're going to go over. So I think from most of your questions, I kind of already know, right? Instead, how you're actually doing things in class to grab students' attention. But let's say from all these options here, I would like to know what is your style in engaging the students in the classroom. So we have 5 options there. You just need to write A, B, C, D, or E just to make it easier. You don't have to type the whole thing, right? I'll read it to you. So A is, I try to get to know my students well. B, I show my students that I care about them. C, I give them the freedom to decide their task. C, I ask them to share their opinions. E, I create fun activities with them. Just want to know like how many people would say A. Okay, seeing a lot of E, D. There's one C there. So a lot of us are creating a lot of fun activities, right? Okay. Ask them to share their opinions. So for those who answered E, so I just have a question. Is this always successful to you when you create fun activities? Are they always engaged with you when you make these fun activities? Or was there any times maybe when you tried to make it fun, but the students still didn't really engage into your lesson? Any chance maybe that they didn't find it as fun as you thought it to be, right? Maybe you think like, oh, I would tell the story. It was really funny to me, but then nobody was laughing or nobody found it interesting. I could say it works like 80% of the time. Yeah. No, I always work all the time. That's great. If it always works, that's great. Still a lot of keys. Okay. Yes. All right. So you can still continue with your answers. Just keep answering, right? So today's goals, what I'll be going over. First one, I want us to find out factors that increase students' motivation. Because as we have seen previously, right, it's mostly about students' boredom, or they're not interested in the lesson, or they're not interested in the subject itself. And the second one is to learn more on how differentiated instructions will help. And then we will obtain some tips for engaging students in class. And the last one, as Ms. Nadia has said, is how Atlas can actually help you to achieve this, to achieve students being engaged with you. Right. So another question that, well, you don't have to answer, but just have it in your mind, right? What does motivation mean to you? So let's not look at our students for now, but just for yourself as a person, right? What does motivation mean? So when do you feel like you're motivated to do something, right? So try to think about that. So the definition here, motivation is what burns our desire to begin a task, and it helps us sustain the effort required to work toward and achieve our goals. So there are actually 2 important things there, right? Work toward and also achieve our goals. So there's that goal aspect that actually helps us to get motivated. So we shouldn't forget when we're talking about building motivation, we need to know what the goals are, right? What is it for the students, or what is it even for us that we will be motivated? And we can tell when students are motivated to learn when they have higher achievements, better understanding, and are more satisfied with school overall. So when we're talking about motivation itself, we need to know what kind of motivations are there, right? So there are these two types of motivations that I think are very crucial for us to understand right now. So there's something called intrinsic motivation, and there is extrinsic. So intrinsic, you can see there, right? There's a pride, interest, curiosity. So something that actually comes from within. So it's actually easier to remember because there's the word in, right? So it's internal, something that comes from our own self. But extrinsic, on the other hand, is something that is external, right? So such as grades, punishment, praise, money. So let's say something that motivates us is when we get a lot of money, right? Or for the students, when they know they will get an A in their English tests, for example, right? So that's something more extrinsic. Right, so another quiz for all of you. So intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. So I want to know number 1 to number 4, which type of motivation do you think it is? So number 1, we have playing a game because it's fun. Is that intrinsic or is that extrinsic? So you can write down in the chat box 1 intrinsic or 1 extrinsic, like that, okay? And number 2, competing in a class contest to win a trophy. So is that intrinsic or extrinsic? Number 3, competing in a class contest for the challenge. And number 4, student studying to get higher grade. Is that intrinsic or extrinsic? I'll give us about maybe 30 seconds. So you can write down maybe 1, or you can just type down I or E. I will understand that as well. I for intrinsic, E for extrinsic. Yeah, let me. From Miss Aino, motivation for me is something makes me have spirit and power to do something. Yeah. So there's like a sense of achievement there, right? And motivation means something really important to me, especially when I do my work. Yeah, so it is very closely related to passion, right? Something that is that we are passionate about. If I say hello and ask to say something, they will not be sleepy anymore. Yeah. Oh, there's something about asking their social media. Yes, so making the lesson relevant to them, right? So that's a bit of scaffolding, actually. Scaffold the activity first, how it's relating to them. Okay, so yes, I will discuss about the 1, 2, 3, 4 later, but you can type in your answer still. And the next question that I would like you to think, you don't have to answer that one again, just think, right? Which type of motivation do you think leads to higher student engagement in the classroom? Is it the intrinsic or is it extrinsic, right? So start thinking about that. And I'll go back here so you can see this type of intrinsic, extrinsic motivations. There's from Miss Weedy and Miss Astilla, 1 intrinsic, 2, 3, 4 extrinsic, 1 extrinsic, 2 extrinsic, 3 intrinsic. So we have some sort of varieties there, right? Extrinsic 1 and 4. Okay. All right. So I'll tell you the answers a little bit. So obviously, yes, everything can have both sides, right? So we can say maybe number 1 has an extrinsic factor to it, but it's also intrinsic. But the way that I want us to see is take a look at the goal, right? So for example, number 1, playing a game because it's fun. What is the goal there, right? Is the goal to get some external rewards or some internal rewards? So it's fun. Let's say when we're playing a game ourselves, right? And we win something, there's a sense of achievement. Is that external or internal, right? So in my opinion, I think that's more internal because we actually find something fun in it, right? Something from our own that we think it's fun. Number 2, competing in a class contest to win a trophy. So the goal there is to win a trophy. There's that external reward, right? Because that trophy is something they earn when they win a competition, right? So that is more extrinsic. Number 3, competing in a class contest for the challenge. So this one, we're not really telling them what they're getting, but they will just have a sense of achievement that they have competed in a contest or in that challenge itself. So this one actually is more intrinsic, right? Because it comes from within. There's a sense of achievement from themselves that they are competing in some sort of competition. And number 4, study to get higher grade. So the goal is the grades themselves, right? So when they feel they get good grades, they will feel happy. So that's actually more external, right? Okay, so here, when it comes to the question itself, again, everybody can have your own opinion on this. But in my opinion, I think we need to be able to understand how important each of these motivations is, right? To get higher achievement of engagement in classroom, obviously we want the students to feel that this is for them, not for the teachers, right? So it's more for the students themselves. So that's why I think it's more important for us to gain their intrinsic motivation. That's why it's really important for us as teachers to understand what is it for them, instead of asking ourselves what is it for us, but for the students. So this is more student-centered, right? But we should also not omit the fact that extrinsic motivation is what drives the students to be doing the activities we ask them to do. So what I'm saying is we shouldn't say like, okay, I'm just going to find the intrinsic, but not find the extrinsic. So sometimes to get the intrinsic motivation, you have to use the extrinsic. You have to combine it a little bit, right? So let's say today's goal for the students is for them to find a sense of fun in learning English. So let's say they like learning through playing games, right? So of course, the fun part of it is the intrinsic part. But to get there, maybe as teachers, we wouldn't be at the same level of excitement as the students, right? So we need to find the extrinsic motivation. What is it for them? So maybe having trophies, well, not real trophies, maybe like virtual trophies, right? Or stars. I usually use star system. Let's say students get points, how many points they have, and there's that sense of external achievement, right? So a good combination of both will do you wonder. So after understanding about the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, right? So these are the two different types of motivation. So how does actually differentiated teaching relate to it? What can we actually take from knowing their motivation into differentiated instruction? So there's a definition from Tomlinson and Imbo. It says that differentiated instruction is a teaching and learning approach that provides a context to adjust sufficiently several aspects of the curriculum in order to address effectively the needs of all learners. So you can see there is an underline and bolded there, right? The word all. So that means we're not just talking about the majority of the students or some of them, most of them, a little bit of them. It's everyone. So when we're talking about differentiated instruction, it's a little bit different than talking about a group management technique. So this is more of individualized type of technique, right? So understanding each person that you have in your classroom. So that's why it's actually a very challenging topic. And we need to actually be really creative, because let's imagine most of you are school teachers, right? So you have like 30 to 40 students. So you're wondering like, how can I get to know each one of them, right? What they're actually interested in, things like that. So that's actually the thing that we have to be thinking about and how to strategize about that as well. So next part here, you can see the teachers, we can actually differentiate the content, the process, and the products. And how do we actually differentiate the content, the process, and the product? It's actually through the students' readiness, interest, and their learning profile. So I will explain a bit in detail later, but this is sort of the overall overview, right? How you can actually see how you can actually differentiate your class. And there's another definition there, right? Differentiation is simply a teacher attending to the learning needs of a particular student or small groups of students, rather than teaching a class as though all individuals in it were basically alike. So regardless, let's say there's a lot of times when people ask like, well, I'm teaching like grade 1, right? Or I'm teaching grade 2 students, so I will do this in my class. So that itself is a differentiation, right? Because we obviously know there's something different between grade 1 and grade 2, but we have to dig deeper, right? What makes grade 1 even more different inside the classroom? So obviously you have different learning styles, learning needs, interests, all of that matters. So there's the timeline there, right? So the content itself, what is it to be learned, the process, how students acquire information, the product, how students demonstrate learning, and last one, the learning environment, where and with whom students learn. So all these 4 are actually very important in how you differentiate your classes. So then the question arises, right? So why do we do differentiated teaching? So the first one, it's because everybody has different learning styles and preferences. So I think the why I include preferences there instead of just styles, because I think there's like a myth that's been debunked, right? About different learning styles. So everybody doesn't only have one learning style. So everybody actually can learn from auditory, right, visual, and also kinesthetic. But we're just using it differently at different circumstances. Instead of like just saying, okay, today I'll just be going over something for all the visual learners, tomorrow for all the kinesthetic learners, we have to actually understand how to combine all of them together so it becomes more effective and everybody can learn from it. So you have to decide what kind of activity that actually can meet all these different needs. And the second one, different learning pace. So a lot of students in your class are probably at different paces at learning. So meaning maybe it's not that they don't understand what you're teaching them in class, but actually the students are learning maybe a bit slower or a bit faster than their friends, right? And we need to understand that as well, because let's say maybe talking to this type of students, it will take me about 5 minutes to teach them about grammar, but maybe with a kind of student, it might take me the whole hour, right? It can be that different. And the third one, different interests and skills. So some students, maybe they're interested in art. Some of them are more interested in science. Some of them are interested in language. That's why maybe when it comes to learning English, it's actually easier for them. But it doesn't mean that those students who are not interested in English will not learn from your English lesson, right? But there are some ways around it that we can make it that it's interesting for them. And their skills, right? So maybe some students in your class, when it comes to learning English, some are really good at speaking. So they are speaking way more fluently, almost like they're native speakers. But some of them maybe they're not speaking as fluently, but they're writing really, really well. Like it's really neat. Their capitalization is correct. There's no mistake in the grammar, things like that. So obviously those two are also quite different, right? And the way you need to approach them has to be different as well. And number 4, different backgrounds or starting points. So this actually relates to the question that was asked last week. So let's say when we're teaching middle school, grade 7, right? So SMPA 1. So let's say students are coming from different elementary schools. Some students have actually backgrounds at English at certain schools. Some have 0 English. And you as a teacher have to be the one teaching all of them within the same class because they're all grade 7. So obviously you can't really treat one and the other the same, right? So maybe you're talking to one person, they will understand English perfectly. The other person doesn't understand English at all. So obviously you have to do some sort of differentiation there. And the last one, different goals and expectations. So this also relates to the intrinsic motivation part, right? So what is their goal or what is their expectation? Do they just learn English for fun or they have specific goal? Maybe they want to be English teachers in the future. So knowing these things, right, what they want to be, for example, it's going to help you to plan your lesson really well because you can manage your lesson. You can tailor it in a way that it's very interesting and it's effective for the students as well. So these are some tips that we have today, how you can start. Let's say you want to start, okay, because I have to do some differentiated instruction in my class. What can I do? Where do I start? Right? It's a lot of things I have to actually take into account. So the first one, you need to create a conducive learning environment. So what does the word conducive mean, right? So conducive means that it is effective and it matches everybody's need. So not just at specific groups, but everybody. So in order to do this, to have a conducive learning environment, you need to be able to build good rapport with everybody. So meaning that everybody enjoys your lesson. They want to be in class with you, because if they don't want to be in class with you, then they're not going to learn as much, right? So you need to really figure out why they don't want to learn with you. There must be some sort of maybe external factor that's causing that to happen. And you need to tell them that it's okay to ask. So this is something that is really trivial for all of us. It's really easy for English teachers to be saying like, well, I'm a fun teacher, so obviously they can ask me any questions. They don't have to be afraid of it. But students sometimes are not, they don't understand that yet, right? Because we haven't told them that. So you just need to tell them it's okay to ask. Whenever you have any questions, whenever you have doubts, ask me. And demonstrate interest. So this comes from both the teachers and also the students. And I really want to focus on the teachers for now, right? Because I've seen some teachers when I ask them, let's say, you need to teach this to the students today, right? But they're actually not interested in the lesson themselves. So that is a big no-no. Because if you don't enjoy your own lesson, how can you expect the students to enjoy the lesson as well, right? So even though as much as you don't really relate to the topic, you need to find something that is relevant to yourself first, right? Dig into your experience, your past memory, whatever it is, but make it interesting to you first before you have to make it interesting for your students. And the last one, help students to believe in themselves, right? So this is, as Ms. Nadia has mentioned earlier, a lot of students say like, I don't know how to speak English, or I'm too afraid, right? I'm not confident enough. So you have to be the one pushing them to be brave, right? To be confident in themselves. So keep mentioning this. So all these like positive aspects will remind them that the teacher is very supportive of them, right? Because if we show we are supportive, the students will also be more likely to find it okay to make mistakes. If the students find, let's say, the teachers are being judgy, right? Let's say maybe the teachers are always talking in condescending tone, and they're always judging students based on their grammar, or, oh, you pronounced that wrong, you should have used this correctly, then the students will not be confident. So the teacher plays a big role here. We need to make the environment conducive first. And one of them is through this, make it comfortable for the students themselves. And second one, really easy. Discover what your students' interests are. So you can see there, right? So maybe some of them are into art, into music, fashion design, sports, whatever it is, right? But you need to know what each student's interest is. I've also talked to a lot of teachers when they said like, well, I have this like teenager student, right? And he said that he didn't like anything. And I have actually also interviewed a lot of students for placement tests as well that said the same thing. So do I just accept that they just don't have any interest? Probably not, right? Because they're still human beings. We're all human beings. We have some sort of interest in something. So that means it's our job to dig even deeper. So in order to do that, you might have to ask more specific questions, right? So sometimes they're just not, they just don't share that with you because they don't know you yet. So you have to make it as in like, oh, do you like games, for example? Like, do you play games on the weekend? What kind of games do you play? This, okay. And do you meet some friends in that game? Yeah, okay, cool. What countries do your friends come from? Oh, they're from this and that. So that means you've been using English, right? Yes. So you know how to speak English? Yes. Right. So from there, you can actually find out about the student's background. So a lot of things, right? But you need to start knowing about this. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago as well when we were talking about diagnostic tests, right? Diagnostic test is done. It's not only done at the very beginning, it can be done as a form of formative assessment as well. So even in the middle of your course, you want to try to figure out what the students' interests are, you can still do that, right? So this is going to help you a lot in terms of how you can lesson plan for your lessons. And the third one, include your students' interests into your lessons. So make it relevant. So I have told you earlier, you make yourself relevant to the topic. Now we add the students' interest into that as well. So there's like a meeting point, right, between the teachers and also the students. So you want to make sure the students' interests are also embedded in your lessons. So figure out what it is in your lesson that you can relate to what their interests are. The next one, to engage them in the learning process. So let students make choices, right? So this is another thing that I've also mentioned to a lot of my teachers. So regardless what the outcome is, it's supposed to still be a win-win situation for you. So meaning sometimes the choices we made, we already knew that whatever option it is still going to be beneficial for us as well. So I know it's a bit manipulative in a way, but that's one way to actually get them to learn from you, right? So for example, let's say, today we have to be doing some writing, but most of your students don't like writing. It's like, I hate writing, I don't like this, such and such, right? So instead of saying that, oh, you have to write, or we give them option. Okay, so do you want to start listening first or writing first, right? Then they can say, okay, I like listening, so let's do listening first. Or maybe like, let's do the hard things first, mister. Let's do writing first, then we'll do the listening, the fun part later, right? So either way, you're making it interesting, but they still have to do it, right? And the second one, allow them to share their expectations. So not just to you, but to their friends as well. So their friends can actually find a way to relate to their friends. So they can relate to each other as well. So one thing that's very common, let's say, is sharing interests, right? So let's say, oh, there's one student that can play the guitar. There's one student that can actually sing. So maybe you're teaching high school students, right? And they turn out like, oh, why don't we jam together, right? Let's try to do it after class, such and such. So they're actually building rapport themselves, right? It's almost automatic. And third one, teach them to reflect and take control over their own learning. So the best way to learn is when students are reflecting on themselves. And that's the same for us as well as teachers. I'll talk about the teachers later. But for the students, you want them to be able to find their own mistakes, right? And to be able to correct them. So not all the time we have to be the one correcting their errors. So sometimes we have to allow them to figure out what their mistakes are, how they can fix it themselves, right? And the last one, to empower them by showing them where they can access additional resources. So some students, especially when they're a bit older, we're talking about more teenagers, right? So some of them are very diligent. So they want to do more, right? So it's like, oh, I really want to improve my pronunciation, mister. I want to speak more like you. How did you learn it, right? So then you can actually give them some additional resources. Tell them like, oh, why don't you try using this, using that? Or I actually have it on my resources here, which you can access because you have access to it. Or maybe if they're already signed up to Atlas, it's actually easy because everything is in Atlas already. Then the last step, actually, in order for you to start, is to plan and to anticipate. So the first thing there, I need you to identify students as groups, if possible. So obviously, as I've mentioned earlier, oh my God, I'm teaching 30 to 40 students at once, right? How can I pay attention to all of them at once? It's impossible, right? So you need to be creative. You need to strategize. So get them into groups, right? Or just think about it this way. I have some students who are really good at writing. Some of them are really good at speaking. So maybe I'll form some groups where they have to actually be with each of the different counterparts. Maybe one group will consist of one really strong speaker, strong writer, strong listener, and whatsoever. In that way, they're kind of like helping each other out, right? Then the second one, group students based on their categories. You can also do it, let's say, maybe for now, you want to build their confidence. So you want them to share their problems. Let's say listening, they don't like listening. So ask this specific group, get them into one group. Okay, what is it in listening that is very challenging? So it turns out it's the vocabulary. It's not actually listening itself. So students just don't know enough vocabulary. So they ask you, Mister, what should we do if you want to improve our vocabulary? Have you tried maybe using, what is it called, some Kahoot or all these quizzes, websites that you do as a game? You can play together as a whole group, right? And practice using these new words, things like that. And prepare extra work for fast finishers or make them little teachers. So this is something I like doing myself because I know in almost every class we have those fast finishers who will always just finish early, right? So make sure you have something extra for them, right? So you don't ask them to wait, because the moment you're asking them to wait, you might lose their motivation because they will feel like, oh, I already know this. I don't have to do this anymore. So, or you can make them little teachers. So little teachers, maybe they can become the mentors of those groups that we set up earlier, right? So you can ask them to maybe guide this other students who are still not done with their work. So make them the little teachers. Then the next step, to anticipate those who might need support. So on the other hand, we have the really fast finishers, but we also have those who actually need more support from us. So don't forget about them as well, right? So maybe if you have the little teachers already, maybe they're taking control over the groups, you can be the one helping the ones who need more support, right? So then you can focus on that student more effectively as well and spend more time. Then the last one is, as you are lesson planning, please don't forget to find potential solutions. It will be different for every teacher, for every class, because it depends on you, right? What kind of solution you want to bring to class. You want to have the little teachers, or you want to bring extra work, or you want to set it up in groups. You need to think about that before coming to the class itself. So that's why on the right side here, there's that idiom there, right? Better safe than sorry. And I put the umbrella there. I hope you know what that means, right? Because I think that's the Indonesian idiom, right? You need to prepare the umbrella before it rains, right? So that's the English version. Better safe than sorry. So let's say you've done all of that, right? So you have differentiated your teaching. So that's great. So congratulations. Very, very nice. So at the end, don't forget to reflect, right? How it went. So instead of just like, okay, we did it and that's it, we reflect how effective that was. And should I do it again? Or I know that this is working, so maybe I'll do that again, or maybe I'll try to alternate, do something else and do that again in the next few lessons, or that just didn't work at all. So I'll have to find something that's completely different, whatever it is, but the practice will make perfect, right? And don't forget to celebrate successes as well. So not to yourself as a teacher, but also with the students. So you want to tell them like, wow, good job, well done. So as small of a progress as it is. Let's say students in writing, they know how to write with punctuations correctly. Yay, good job, very, very nice. So that kind of positive enforcement will also bring their intrinsic motivation up. So you need to use that to your advantage as well. Okay, so more polling time. So I would like to know how you are using this division technique already. I think most of you have already started using it, right? But maybe you just don't know why or what it is. But what do you do in your classroom to motivate your students? So we have A, listen to a song. B, play fun games. C, use online games. D, use the internet. E, watch short movies. F, other activities or techniques. If you choose F, please also mention what they are. So maybe we can share some ideas, right? So I believe this is the best way for teachers also is to talk to each other. Say, oh, I use this in my class. Why don't you use this? Or use this. I think I want to try it too in my class, right? So we can learn from each other too. So please write down your answers. Play fun games. I think a lot of games, very, very nice. Use online games, listen to a song, sing it together. Listening to music, sing a song that they like. Sometimes E, okay, yeah, watch short movies. D and F, yeah, what's the F for? So I'm seeing a lot of fun games. That's very, very nice. Ooh, there's actually the polling section there. Thank you, Miss Nadia. Really awesome. So we can see like the most popular option. So it is B, right? You can see for the trend. Very, very nice. Okay, so I think a lot of you really know a lot about using fun activities in class. This is actually very, very awesome. Song is the second one. Yeah. Very, very nice. Okay, yeah, that's cool. So keep polling. I'll continue. Okay, so then we understand about the student's motivation, and we have understood as well about the differentiated instruction. Now it's using it to actually build the motivation and engagement. So I will show some of the Atlas resources that we actually already have that includes everything that I have just mentioned just now. So everything is already built in. So when you use it, you can actually use it to your teaching as well. It's actually really, really convenient to use. So you will see that a lot of these include teaching with technology, games, promote active learning, and get out of the classroom. So the last one, it doesn't mean like you're kicking them out of classroom. It means that we're doing something outside the classroom together, right? They have to do something that is beyond the classroom itself, because the learning doesn't end in the classroom, right? So they have to continue doing it even outside. So the first one, teaching with tech. So this is actually from our LMS. You can see on the left side there. So if you have already access to it, it will be very familiar to you. If not, this is what it looks like. So you can actually see, right, there's like the book list there. So if you click on any of the book, you can actually access all these materials, including the lesson plan, how to run each of the activity itself. Then you will see on the right side, on the top right-hand side there, there's music. For example, let's say we're learning through music. And this music is usually some popular songs from YouTube. So it's actually very fun, and the students can actually relate to it, right? Because it's something they have listened to, right? Maybe let's say it's, what is it? When Will My Life Begin by Mandy Moore from Disney's Tangled. So I think most students know Tangled, they know Disney, right? So when we're playing this, they'll be like, oh, I've learned this song before, right? Or I know this song. So it actually is already a part of differentiation in itself, right? Because we're making it relevant to their interests. Then we also have some videos. So some students who prefer to watch videos and learn from it, right? They can actually do some active listening as well. Or you can also do this. This is the games. So the games, you can see it looks very, very fun. It's called Penguins Can Fly. I think Miss Nadia showed it to me. I actually haven't tried, but I really want to try it because it looks really, really fun. Even as teachers, I think we can still have fun, right, guys? So Penguins Can Fly. It's actually, I think it's a vocabulary type of a game that students can review what they have learned in that unit, right? So there's like the equipment, leaderboard. So that is the extrinsic motivation, right? As I've mentioned earlier. So the students can find some motivation. Let's say, oh, I will be number one, ranking number one, or I can get some points, and so on. Then maybe on the right side, we also have some interviews. So an interview is blah, 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 blah. You can see, right? And it gives you the questions already, so you don't have to come up with your own questions. So what unique culture do you have in your hometown? So we ask students to talk about their hometown. So maybe this is really useful for some students, maybe that come from different places, right? We have a unique ceremony called Ngaben in Bali. So talk about other cultures, right? How they are, what kind of information does the student already know about it, and so on. Then there's some follow-up activities, right? So again, we want to tackle as much as possible of the student's interests and skills, right? So let's say, A, pair up and interview each other about the unique culture that you have. Find out 3 facts and 3 opinions from your partner about their culture. And then B, summarize the result of your interview in a recorded activity, report and submit to your teacher. And make a group of 4, make presentation, and so on, right? So you can make it as interactive possible. But if you're using this Atlas material, you don't have to think as much because it's already there. So you just need to conduct it in class because it will tackle for all these different skills and abilities. Another fun part there, so this is active learning. So this is more relevant towards the students' life. So maybe let's say in the future, we're going to be talking about daily routines, what students actually do, right? So they can write their own weekly planner. So make it as relevant as possible. So what kind of subjects do they have each day, right? So we're asking them to make, what is it called? An agenda, right? So usually students have agenda when they go to school. So ask them to make it, right? But it has to be in English, and it has to include their extracurricular activities and so on. Or on the right side, you can see the writing, right? Make a group of 4, describe a product that can make household work easier so they can discuss with each other and write it down. And they can create an advertisement. So it's a real life skill, right? When they know how to make an advertisement. Maybe you can also provide some examples, some models, right? Show some examples of an advertisement online. This is what it looks like. So try to make it your own. And they don't have to be doing this by themselves. You can set them up in groups, right? So they can work together as a group. So maybe for those who are a little bit lazier when it comes to writing, they will find it more fun because they can work together with each other, right? So that's also a practice in itself. Then the last part is the get out of classroom. So this is something that maybe we can give as an extra homework, or maybe not even extra homework. If you have some extra time in your class and you want them to be like asking somebody else, right? That's not in class, you can also do this, right? So it's very, very interactive. And I believe there's something in the Merdeka curriculum, right, that asks the students to actually go and explore by themselves. So be on a field and learn from the environment. This can be one of it as well, right? Instead of just asking them like, okay, you have to learn from outside. So then the students will be like, okay, what do I have to do, right? So we can give them some guided instruction. So, okay, to learn about this topic from outside, you can do this. So why don't you try to find some food, clothes, traditions, and festivals? You can ask your parents where they come from, right? How about their cultures? What was it like? And so on. Then the bottom part, there's like decide on one topic, prepare a list of questions for your research. So from just doing that survey, that can actually lead to another activity that's very useful for them, which is to actually write down a summary, right? So something also we learned last week about paraphrasing. This can be a good practice for paraphrasing as well, because they have to paraphrase what their sources told them. Maybe their sources are their parents. So their parents say like, oh yeah, I come from Bali, and in Bali we have this and that, right? So they have to use a third person conjugation, change it to my mom is from Bali and she is blah, 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 right? That itself is already practice, right? Because you're paraphrasing from a first person perspective to third person perspective. So that is a good start for them as well. And some other examples here, right? Make a list of things that makes you different and compare it with someone. So very interactive with each other as well. And present your findings to the class, so you can have them to present in front of the classroom to build their confidence as well. And I think this one is probably Miss Nadia's favorite. Photo scavenger hunt. It's really, really fun. So for example, let's say we actually, as teachers, we have to be as proactive as the students. So maybe before the class even starts, we want to print some photos ourselves, right? Of some things of the vocabulary that you want them to learn for that day. Maybe today we'll be talking about food, but in English, right? So take pictures of the food first, right? Or maybe just print out some from Google and you stick them somewhere, right? Then they will race to take a picture of these items. So maybe they can use their phones, because learning with technology, right? And let's say this is the best time to use it. Then you can ask them to build the vocabulary by listing some of the items. So after taking the pictures, they have to tell you like what these are. So they need to kind of like, this is called a discovery method, right? So they discover what they're going to learn by actually doing this activity first. So that's the easy part. Then the difficult part, build vocabulary by listing some abstract words just by giving a clue or situation. So let's say this is not as easy as food. Let's say today we'll be talking about feelings. So obviously feelings are very abstract, right? We can't really show pictures. Maybe there are some emotions, things like that, but it's not as easy as describing about food. So you can also change depending on how you want to challenge the students. And at the end, don't forget to give them rewards, right? As I've mentioned. So if there are any successes, they should be able to celebrate, right? So in order to do this, there's some suggestions there. Maybe you can have mini exhibition of the students' project. Let's say they build posters. So you want to hang it like on one of the walls in your classroom, right? Hang it there for maybe a week or two. Or you can ask them to perform in front of others, create wall magazines, and maximize student-to-student interaction. So I think a lot of these actually is related to productive skills we learned about last week. If you want to know more about the productive, you can watch a video, right? Miss Nadia, it's all there. It's also part of how we can actually support giving rewards to the students. So not everything has to be about, okay, give them some materialistic things, but actually the sense of intrinsic motivation. Again, going back to there again. And the last thing is the goal is not only for having fun, but also how the activities reach the objectives. So that's the best ideal situation, right? That's our goal as a teacher. So we want to make the lessons fun. We also want to make sure that we are tackling the lesson aim for that day. So that is the goal of differentiation in itself, right? But in order to do that, we need to make sure that the students are motivated, that they are engaged in your lesson. Because if not, then they're not getting as much as you would want them to. So I think that's pretty much it for me. So I'll give it back to Miss Nadia. Maybe we'll have some questions session after this, and we'll go to the second session, right, Miss
Yeah.
Nadia?
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Kevin, for having a really practical and great presentation. So the things that I, finally get, to make sure that our students feel secure, okay, not feel
Yeah.
insecure anymore, adalah dengan memberikan mereka kayak motivasi dulu nih untuk learn from the very beginning gitu ya. Okay, so yeah, create some fun on our activities that will help. Thank you, Mr. Kevin. Okay, so everybody, now it is time for us to have question and answer session. Yes, if you have any question, you can directly raise your hand, or you can type on our chat box. Okay. I I thought it's a raise. Someone is raising hand, but no, it's a clap. Okay. Okay, that's all for you, Mr. Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, okay, let me check our YouTube as well to find out. And then Bapak Ibu, if you have any question, or if the question is just, too long, nah, kalau terlalu panjang, you actually can just raise your hand. Okay, and bisa nanti I help you to unmute. Okay, now we have Ibu Sastila Murni. Okay, she's now raising her hand. Okay, nah, I would like to ask you, Ibu Sastila, untuk open up your video first. Okay, good. Now, hello, Ibu Sastila.
Halo Kak Nadia.
Okay, how are you, Ibu? Apa kabar?
Baik Kak Nadia.
Okay. So, yes, do you have any question? Open up. Oh, yes, Ibu.
Iya.
Halo. Ya, Ibu Sastila dari mana? If I'm not mistaken, it is from Padang, right, Ibu?
Oh iya.
I remember you. Okay, so how is it?
Can I speak Indonesian, Kak Nadia?
Oh, yeah, please, Ibu. Nggak apa-apa, Ibu. We understand both English and Indonesia. Asal jangan bahasa Padang ya, Ibu ya. Kita semua lapar langsung pengen makan nasi Padang. Oke.
Okay, thank
Ibu.
you, Kak Nadia, Mr. Kevin, for your great presentation this afternoon. Actually, I have been waiting for this material for so long. I have a question in my mind. Okay. It's about speaking ability for the boys and the girls of my students. Why do the boys can speak fluently than the girls, but they are poor in the grammar? And the contradiction, the girls are good in grammar, but they are ashamed to speak. Can you answer my question, Mr. Kevin?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Wow, Ibu Sastila, ini mungkin memang bukan fakta yang kayak ada risetnya gitu ya, Bu ya, tapi kayak memang majority-nya in your class seperti itu ya, Bu ya?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe Mr. Kevin has the solution for my problem.
Okay, so please Mr. Kevin, kenapa terjadi perbedaan antara students perempuan dan students laki-laki nih? Gitu. Jadi ada yang fluent speakingnya, ada yang akurasi grammarnya oke, gitu ya. Nah, what do you think, Mr. Kevin?
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the question. That's actually a very, very good question. So, actually, it's not about the boys or versus girls, because I've also taught like some classes that the girls are more dominating than the boys as well. I think that is more on the interaction first, right? So more than actually the English capability. So what is the trend in your classroom first? Are the girls more talkative or the boys more talkative? In this case, I believe the boys are more talkative, even in Indonesian more than the girls, right? And usually with the students that are more fluent, they don't pay attention as much to the grammar, right? So naturally speaking, because they are just so confident in speaking, they just say it. So that's actually the tendency. In this case, because the girls are the quieter ones, I would say, they get a chance to analyze more what they want to say because they don't have as much space to speak compared to the boys. That's why they can actually analyze like, oh, I need to make sure I'm using the right grammar. So whenever they say something, grammatically speaking, they will use better grammar. They will be more accurate. It's just based on the frequency. But in terms of who is better at what, I believe it's just like who we're giving more space to. So in this case, as teachers, what we need to do, we need to balance the class out a little bit, right? So basically, you need to control the boys a little bit more. So give them maybe like fewer space to speak and have the girls speak more. So until the girls find more confident to be able to be at that same level. And it is really, really hard because as we know, the students are already used to this culture that maybe the boys are speaking more than the girls in class. But over time, they will understand that there is a goal. And as the teacher, you can also let them know. You can tell them like, I want to have the girls to be more spontaneous, right? So that means you have different goals for these two groups, right? For the girls, I want you to say more spontaneous things, right? You don't have to pay as much attention to your grammar because I want you to build on your fluency. On the other side, for the boys, it's the complete opposite. I want you to pay attention to your grammar more. And as teachers, we can also assess. So meaning you can have speaking assessment. So maybe after you ask students to give projects, let's say presentation, you can tell them what their mistakes are, especially for the boys, right? Because they're making a lot of grammar mistakes. Maybe they're not using past tense correctly or they're using their grammar wrong. Just point out to them. So that way they can also reflect. But I think in this case, it's more of the balancing problem. But it doesn't mean that the boys naturally have more ability to speak up fluently, because I've also managed to see some classes that have girls dominating the classes more as well. Actually, it's quite often as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kevin. Jadi sebenarnya it's not about, mungkin karena majority of the class-nya aja gitu ya, why it's
Right.
the boy, gitu kan. Alright, so now, okay, I'm so excited because we have two teachers are raising their hands. Okay, I would like to start with Mr. Ase. How is it correct? The correct way to mention, okay, to pronounce your name. Hello, Bapak Ase.
Okay.
Ase.
Yeah,
Okay,
Asa.
how is the correct
Asa,
one
only Asa.
to pronounce your
Yeah,
Ase?
you pronounce right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Good.
you
So,
pronounce right.
Mr. Asa, please, if you have any question.
Okay, thank you for giving me time to express my problem here. It's the first time I'm very lucky to join this meeting. Actually, I have maybe general questions. Why Indonesian leader difficult to understand native speaker? If my student make conversation with the other friend, it's easy for them to make a conversation. But when I try to talk with native speaker, oh my God, I feel insecure, I feel lost vocabulary. And the second question is how to break the block mindset for the students. I think not only motivation to boost our quality in English, but how to do the therapy for the students. I think that's all my questions.
Okay.
Maybe you can give me a solution. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Asa. Anyway, where are you from, Mr.? Okay, sorry.
Okay, I'm from Penajam Pasir Utara, East Kalimantan.
Oh,
I teach.
yeah, Mr.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Asa, for joining us. Okay.
Thank you.
Jadi the question is about why is it hard for Indonesian students, okay, masih ada insecure-nya untuk talk to bule gitu. Okay, can we say bule or native speaker? Okay, please, Mr. Kevin.
Okay, well, again, really good question. And actually, that's very, very common, right? I'm talking with native speakers. I think, well, the most common general answer, if I may say, is probably just not used to speaking to them, right? That's the first thing. So they're not exposed as much. But actually, if we're talking deeper, there's a lot of different factors to it. The first one is when we are speaking in English with our students, right? We tend to grade our language because we know the students' capabilities, right? So we tend to make our words easier, our phrases simpler, right? So we don't actually talk as natural as native speakers. But for native speakers, because they are not used to grading the language, they just speak as if this is their first language, right? As if we're speaking in Bahasa. That's why they don't actually grade their language. So the students find it really difficult to understand what they mean. And the first thing that I think we need to understand as well is the overall speech pattern itself. So for example, let's say connecting words from one to another. So let's say when we're teaching students, especially when they're just starting out, we want them to be very, very clear, right? So let's say it's a pencil, right? So then that the students can say it's a pencil. But if native speakers would say it, it would be very connecting, right? It's like, it's a pencil. It's almost like there's nothing in between. It's very connected. So that we need to teach students as well. So that's why on top of teaching grammar, listening, something that is very important is teach them pronunciation. So that's why we need to teach them as early as possible is how to pronounce sentences instead of just words. So because certain words will change their pronunciation as we put them in a sentence. For example, let's say the word have, to have, right? That's how we say like, I have a book. But let's say if we're saying been, using have been, the pronunciation of have changes into a short version, which is more of a schwa, which is have, right? I've been, I have been. We don't say I have been, right? So then the students are not actually used to that yet. So because they're not exposed to it. So as teachers, we can help them by preparing them for it, right? It's like, oh, in the natural speech, if you talk to native speakers, you will hear this, right? So they can get used to it. Also, maybe it's teaching them some filler words, right? So a lot of, I say it a lot, so, like, to connect different sentences, because that's how natural the native speakers use it, right? So by using that, then they're also used to hearing a lot of these filler words as well. And the last one is instead of asking them to, let's say, focus on words, we want them to focus on phrases. So when we're teaching them anything, make sure they're learning as a whole phrase. So let's say, how do you say your age? Whenever I interview students, how old are you? They always say my age is or my old is, right? It could be correct in a way, maybe grammatically speaking, but it's not natural, right? The natural way to say it is I am 11 years old, right? Or I am this. So I guess it's more about that. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you so much, Mr. Kevin. Ya, sangat practical tipsnya, dan I believe that Mr. Ase and also all of the teachers here ready to use it and ya langsung bisa diaplikasikan, especially yang bagian bahwa kalimat itu tuh kalau misalnya kata dirangkai kalimat, it's going to have different sound. Yeah, actually I learned that on in university level. That is why. Okay, yeah, dan I believe kalau misalnya students diajarkan sejak dini gitu ya bahwa it's going to be different dan akan lebih awareness-nya lebih ada gitu. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kevin. Wow, okay. Perhaps one more question from Ibu Liz, yes. Okay, Ibu, kita mungkin agak cepat aja because the times for the second session is should be started soon. Okay, please, Ibu Liz.
Ya, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya, selamat sore Mr. Kevin dan Bu Nadia. Alhamdulillah, I am really happy to be here. Ya, like Mr. As ya sebelumnya ya. It's a really simple question for me because I remember what did you wrote in the last presentation about the game, not only for having fun, but also how the activities reach the objectives. But the reality, based on my experience, the student just following the game or like game because for having fun. Yeah, this is the reality. What should we do if the students actually they like game just for fun? The reality, yeah, Mr. Kevin, yeah. When I ask them, are you happy today because of the game? Most of them will answer, yes, we are so happy, ma'am. But when I ask, what can you learn from the game? What can you get from the game? Nothing, ma'am. But we are so happy. So what should we do about the reality, Mr.
Okay.
Kevin? Yeah, thank you.
Ibu, yeah, thank you for for telling. Yeah, that's also my question. Thank you, Ibu. Okay, now Mr. Kevin, I guess you can help us here. Thank you,
Sure.
Ibu.
Yes. Yes, that's actually a very, very good question as well. So actually, a lot of my teachers have been asking me that as well. It's like, how can I tell if the students are actually learning from my games or are they just enjoying the games? So that's why we actually do the formative assessments, right? So that's actually the best way to actually ask or not to ask, to just actually know whether the students learn something from our activities. Because a lot of times when we're focused a lot on asking students, did you understand something? What did you learn today? They would say nothing. I didn't learn anything. Like even their parents always ask them this, right? At home, like, what did you learn from Mr. Kevin? No, we just played games, right? So it almost like to us as teachers, it feels like it defeats the purpose, right? So something that I do also, I'm asking my teachers to do is to actually change the word game into activity. So that's another thing, right? Because the conception of game is that, oh, it's something that's not learning, but actually through the games itself, it's the learning process, right? So we have to change that mindset first. So we're not actually playing a game, we're doing a fun activity. So you can mention it as fun activity. But I also wouldn't suggest asking them like, oh, what did you learn from this activity? Because most of the time they will not say they learned anything. So instead of asking that kind of question, we can change the question into something else. So let's say maybe today you're learning about vocabulary, right? So before going home, you can give them like some slides of pictures. Let's say like, okay, can you tell me what it is? If they actually can answer correctly, that means they learned something from your activity, right? So that's actually the best way to assess whether the students understood or not. So I would say my suggestion is to just change the questions that we're asking the students, because I believe that your students learn something from activity, and I can assure you they did. But it's just about how we actually know how much they learn from it. That's the difficult part.
Okay, so that's actually a small thing, yeah. Changing the word, the terms that we use, and also the way we ask. Perhaps we need to ask it like, step by step, the things like a review from the very beginning of the activities. Wow. Okay, Mr. Kevin, thank you so much. Okay.
Yes,
now,
of course.
yes. I guess I have to cut our session, question and answer session, because we are about to have the second session with Mr. Mujib, because he is here finally. Okay. But now, do not forget, don't worry, because we still can have a discussion. Okay. So thank you so much, Mr. Kevin. We are going to see you again on our photo group session. Okay. Bye bye.
Should I give the keywords now or later?
Oh, thank you for reminding me that one. I almost forgot. Yes, that's the keyword. Ya, jadi tadi saya bilang bahwa saya janjikan ada keywords nih nanti yang akan diletakkan in our present list. So nanti Bapak Ibu bisa masukkan keyword ini. The first keyword from Mr. Kevin, what is it?
It's actually, there are 4 words. It's a phrase because we're focusing on phrases, right? So my phrase today is dare to be different.
Dare to be different. Okay, why is it?
Because I think the word different itself, we were talking a lot about differentiated teaching, right? So I think it also takes courage from us as teachers to be daring to be different, because we're doing something that maybe a long time ago it wasn't as popular, right? So it might be something that is very new to us, like coming from a traditional, conventional way of teaching. Now we're into differentiated teaching, which is more westernized and more modern, right? So when we decide we want to use it, we have to be brave enough to use it. So that's why dare to be different.
Okay, dare to be different. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kevin. Okay, so just like what Miss Rabiatul Husna said, bye-bye, Mr. Kevin. See you again. Okay, good. Now, Bapak Ibu semuanya, terima kasih masih bergabung. Before we go to our second session, I would like to share this video first. Okay, alright. So the things that Bapak Ibu yang lihat tadi di video, that's actually our online learning and also the books of Atlas. So I also would like to share this one to you bahwa hari ini Bapak Ibu yang berhadir di acara webinar kita mendapatkan kesempatan untuk bisa jika ingin merasakan pengalaman gitu ya untuk tadi aktivitas-aktivitas seperti yang Mr. Kevin show dengan Atlas gitu ya. Nah, we give you promo actually to buy our books di Shopee dengan menggunakan kode promonya adalah Atlas 0922. So jadinya if you buy 2 books, Bapak Ibu hanya perlu bayar 1 buku gitu. Kalau beli 4 buku hanya bayar 2 buku gitu. Kalau beli 10 buku, karena kita ada dari SD sampai dengan SMA gitu ya. You only will have to pay for 5 books gitu. Oke. Nah, ketika nanti membeli atau melakukan pembelian buku Atlas, Bapak Ibu sudah bisa langsung mendapatkan online learning-nya Atlas gitu. Yang tadi ada lecture videos, kemudian ada animated videos juga. Nah, nanti di akhir acara saya akan show sedikit tentang animated videosnya nih gitu. Okay, now I guess it is time for us to have our second session dengan Mr. Mujib. Oke, jadi saya bertemu dengan Pak Mujib ini di Instagram, Bapak Ibu semuanya. So if you have Instagram, Bapak Ibu bisa langsung add beliau @mujib_hst gitu ya. Ternyata setelah diulik, we actually come from the same island and the same province. Okay, so we are from South
Borneo,
Kalimantan.
Ya, South Kalimantan, Borneo ya.
Oke. Halo, Mr. Mujib.
Halo, Miss
Okay.
Nadia.
Thank you so much for joining us. Yes,
Okay,
yang kemarin hanya bisa saya lihat di laman Instagram saya. Nah, hari ini bisa langsung saya lihat di sini dan berinteraksi bersama kita semua ya. Oke, so Mr. Mujib, oh ya, ini pertanyaan yang tadi saya tanyakan di awal sebenarnya. It is said that you are a mentor. Jadi Bapak adalah mentor dari Balai Rakyat English Club Barabai. Itu apa sih Pak sebenarnya Pak?
Yeah, in Barabai we have English Club that located in Balai Rakyat Building ya. Balai Rakyat Building, Balai Rakyat Building is a government building from government.
I see. Jadi ada pertemuan di situ Pak, kayak setiap berapa kali?
Oh iya. Every Saturday and Saturday night ya. Tiap Sabtu sore kita sama malam mingguan ya. Biasanya ngumpul seru-seruan.
Oke. Alright. Nah, mungkin hari ini ya pas banget because Mr. Mujib sudah berhasil gitu ya kayak mentor untuk English Club ini dan hari ini akan langsung berbagi gitu ya strateginya gimana akhirnya bikin English Club ini dengan strategi-strateginya gitu ya yang bisa bikin anti insecure gitu ya Pak ya. Oke. So I think it is time for you, Mr. Mujib. The floor is yours, Bapak. Silahkan.
Oke, thank you, Miss Nadia. Good afternoon, Bapak Ibu. Waduh, luar biasa. Tadi I feel insecure now. Kayaknya luar biasa seru ya sesinya Mr. Kevin tadi. Mr. Kevin is his English is very good. My English is not good as Mr. Kevin. That I feel insecure now. Okay, sometime I want to share my story about menumbuhkan insecurity dan menghilangkan insecurity dan menumbuhkan motivasi dalam berbahasa Inggris gitu ya. Okay, sometime pardon me, sometime I want to speak in English and sometime I speak in bahasa. Okay, this time I want to share my presentation ya, Bapak Ibu. Okay, talking about building motivation and minimizing insecurity in speaking English. Mungkin sebelumnya boleh saya terima kasih tadi Miss Nadia udah mengendorse Instagram saya ya. Teman-teman, Bapak Ibu boleh kunjungi nih, kita berteman di Instagram di @mujib_hst. Saya senang ngepost, saya senang bercerita lewat Instagram ya teman-teman. Oke, teman-teman boleh juga nih, artinya di saat saya ngomong seperti ini, teman-teman boleh sambil nulis ya di kolom chat. Saya senang interaktif atau sesuatu nih pengen dikomentar nih Pak Mujib, ini gimana nih, aku mau curhat gini nih. Tadi sudah saya baca banyak pertanyaan yang menarik nih. How to motivate the student who come from broken home. Oke, ini menarik nih pertanyaannya. Nanti saya akan coba kupas tentang ini ya, Bapak Ibu. Nah, gini Bapak Ibu, teman-teman. Oke guys, my name is Abdul Mujib. I'm from Hulu Sungai Tengah, from South Kalimantan. Kemarin saya terkejut, Miss Nadia ngobrol ulun gitu, bahasa Banjar gitu. Kok orang Jakarta bisa bahasa Banjar gitu ya? Ini orang mana nih ya? Luar biasa nih. Oh ternyata sama juga ya, sama satu pulau, satu benua dengan saya. Oke, nggak ketemu di ini ya. Luar biasa, dunia sempit sekali nih, bisa ketemu di mana aja dengan sahabat-sahabat di sini. Oke, saya senang belajar juga. Kebetulan saya aktif di beberapa event gitu ya. Saya aktif di komunitas guru belajar Nusantara. Saya terlibat di kepengurusan Nusantara untuk periode 2022 di 2025. Kemudian saya juga terlibat sebagai fasilitator guru penggerak gitu ya. Kemudian juga saya juga mengajar bahasa Inggris. Saya juga mentor di BRCH, Balai Rakyat Creative Hub English Club. Ini saya juga kepala sekolah di SMPN 24 Sungai Tengah ya teman-teman. Nah gini teman-teman, boleh nih teman-teman cerita atau berbagi ya. Kira-kira teman-teman, what makes you insecure nih in speaking nih? Mungkin boleh diketik di kolom chatnya nih. Kira-kira apa nih yang biasanya bikin kita insecure nih? Mungkin di antara salah 4-nya ada, boleh diketik angka 1, 2, 3, 4. Boleh diketik di kolom chat. Kemudian kalau ada di lain yang 4 nih boleh juga diketik apa kira-kira yang biasanya bikin insecure nih. Oke, udah Ibu Ainul menuliskan 1 dan 3, fear of making mistakes ya, traumatic experience, mungkin ada kejadian yang traumatik gitu ya. Tentunya ini pasti ketemu ya, artinya pernah sekali ini yang bikin saya takut gitu ya, ngomong-ngomong bahasa Inggris gitu, ternyata salah ucap, ternyata keliru gitu ya. Nggak pingin nggak pede lagi kayaknya nih ngomong seperti itu gitu ya. Oke, ada kebanyakan 3 nih. 3, one, oke. 1 in 4, Mr. Asar, oke. Oke, feeling low self-esteem, oke. 1 dan 3, 1, 4, oke. 1, banyak 1 ya. Fear of mistake. Ini memang betul ya. Kita pasti takut gitu ya buat kesalahan gitu. Rasa malu gitu ya ketika sesuatu apa yang kita omongin, apa yang kita sampaikan ternyata salah gitu. Gimana gimana naruh mukanya gitu ya. Ini sih yang saya juga sering merasakan ini nih. Kemudian terima kasih teman-teman sudah berbagi di kolom chat. Tentunya apa namanya? Ini ya teman-teman. Wah, biasanya usually what makes insecurity ini biasanya tidak jauh dari 6 point ini ya teman-teman. Biasanya yang pertama dulu kita terkadang merasa rendah diri gitu ya. Siapa sih aku ini ya? Aku apa namanya bukan siapa-siapa gitu ya. Ketemu boleh nggak pernah, kemudian jalan-jalan ke luar negeri juga nggak pernah, kemudian ini kayaknya ketemu orang, oh ini capcicus banget nih, luar biasa Inggrisnya nih kayaknya nggak pede aku nih, aku takut gitu ya, insecure langsung gitu ya ketika ketemu itu. Ini biasanya. Saya juga merasa seperti itu teman-teman. Kemudian social comparison ini juga dibanding-bandingkan ya. Ojo dibanding-bandingke gitu. Kita paling tidak senang dibanding-bandingkan kayak ini apa namanya? Kayaknya pembicara yang tadi keren banget nih. Aku nggak bisa seperti itu gitu ya. Artinya ini nih yang bikin kita kadang-kadang bikin langsung gitu ya insecure gitu ketika dibanding-bandingke gitu ya teman-teman. Nah, kemudian ada pengalaman traumatik past experiences ini mungkin ada kejadian negatif, kemudian ketika sesuatu apa namanya ada merasa malu atau dipermalukan atau ngomong sesuatu langsung dikritik gitu ya. Pernah dikritik ngomong ini nih juga bikin kita insecure nih. Ketika kita mau coba gitu ngomong bahasa Inggris. Fear of judgment. Kita ini pasti takut nggak suka dijudging gitu ya. Kita nggak suka apa nama dinilai gitu ya. Oh, Pak Mujib itu gini. Oh, si Fulan ini gini. Itu apa namanya paling nggak suka. Nah, nanti gimana nih anggapan orang gitu ya. Itu yang biasanya kita bikin insecure teman-teman. Kemudian lack of practice juga mungkin kita jarang latihan, jarang ngomong. Itu juga kita bikin insecure nih, lama nih nggak ngomong sama teman-teman nih. Jadi nggak pede lagi ngomong karena kelamaan nih parkirnya gitu ya. Lidahku udah kaku nih lama nggak ngomong bahasa Inggris, itu juga bikin kita insecure teman-teman. Kemudian cultural factor juga ini salah satunya ya teman-teman. Kita mungkin ekspektasinya itu apa namanya harus gimana gitu ya. Harapannya itu terlalu tinggi atau terlalu berharap gitu ada sesuatu apa namanya ada standar, kita selalu melihat standarnya, oh gini kayaknya aku nggak cocok ngobrol bahasa Inggris kalau aku belum pernah ngobrol sama ini, belum pernah ketemu ini. Ini juga salah satunya teman-teman. Nah, ini yang biasanya yang kita rasakan. Kita percaya bahwa masalah insecurity ini bukan masalah di speaking-nya teman-teman. Insecurity masalahnya itu datang dari perasaan gitu. Meskipun kita speaking-nya udah apa namanya biasa-biasa aja, apa namanya bahkan ancur-ancuran, tapi kalau kita perasaan kita confident, perasaan kita nyaman, kita nggak akan merasa insecure gitu. Sebaliknya, kalau meskipun kita speaking kita bagus gitu ya, kita sering capcicus gitu, Tapi kalau ada perasaan sesuatu itu pasti ada insecure yang akan muncul gitu. Nah, jadi insecurity ini letaknya di perusahaan. Artinya ketika kita ngobrol apapun, ketika teman bicara kita itu ngerti, itu nggak masalah kok. Gitu ya, meskipun kita salah ucap, salah pronunciation-nya salah, atau spelling-nya kurang bagus, atau campur-campur gitu ya, kadang-kadang bahasa Inggris, kadang-kadang bahasa Indonesia, itu nggak masalah sepanjang lawan bicara kita tuh ngerti gitu apa yang kita maksud gitu. Jadi yang perlu kita bangun tuh adalah di perasaannya ini. Nah, mungkin saya punya tips nih teman-teman untuk ini nih, untuk membangun ini, untuk menumbuhkan insecurity. Ini mungkin yang pernah saya coba ya teman-teman bersama teman-teman di sini di English Club. Saya punya tips bagaimana nih memitigasi insecurity ini dan juga menumbuhkan motivasi dalam percaya diri berbicara gitu. Teman-teman, mungkin salah satunya di sini dulu, poin utamanya adalah mungkin yang pertama dulu kita bangun adalah kita coba bangun hubungan yang memanusiakan gitu tuh ya. Artinya ketika kita ketemu ya sama teman-teman di sini, kita coba sapa dulu, bangun hubungan dulu, bangun kepercayaan gitu ya. Artinya ketika kita sulit untuk membuka diri ketika lawan bicara kita nih belum begitu kenal gitu ya. Dinding kita tuh masih muncul karena kita di hadapan kita nih orang yang belum kita kenal. Beda kalau kita ngobrol sama B.Sc itu jauh tuh. Artinya apapun gitu kita bebas ngobrol apapun karena sudah terbangun hubungan gitu ya. Ketika kita belum terbangun, kita mungkin agak insecure gitu ya teman-teman. Nah, yang pertama dulu adalah memanusiakan hubungan. Yang pertama dulu, bagaimana sih caranya untuk memanusiakan hubungan ini dalam kita berinteraksi atau speaking English ataupun making a conversation atau yang pertama dulu kita coba nih define the problem dulu gitu ya. Mungkin kita lihat dulu nih masalahnya di mana nih yang bikin saya belum pede gitu ya. Apakah masalah saya masalah saya itu di sini nih sulit nggak suka dibandingkan atau nggak percaya diri. Ini kita lihat dulu nih masalahnya di mana gitu ya. Yang kedua adalah talk, chat, and conversation. Ini juga sesuatu yang perlu nih. Yang penting itu adalah percakapan. Yang penting itu adalah interaksi gitu ya. Meskipun yang ingin kita ucapkan tuh belum ketemu ataupun salah ataupun kita coba dulu. Bercakap-cakap dulu. Dari percakapan, dari talking, dari chat gitu ya, akan ada interaksi dari orang lawan bicara kita. Nah, ini akan terbangun hubungan di sini. Yang kedua, share. Yang selanjutnya adalah share dan care gitu ya teman-teman. Artinya perlu kita berpikiran terbuka, membuka diri untuk selalu berbagi gitu kepada teman lawan bicara kita. Tujuan kita ini bukan apa-apa kok. Tujuan kita adalah untuk berbagi nih, menyampaikan apa yang di dalam isi hati kita, apa yang ada di pikiran kita. Kemudian kita juga care, berempati gitu ya, menyampaikan empati kita kepada lawan bicara kita, sehingga ini akan terus membangun hubungan nih yang memanusiakan gitu. Share and care ini juga kunci gitu ya. Kemudian no judgment gitu ya. Mungkin kita coba hindari deh, nggak sekali-kali memberikan judgment gitu ya. Nggak sekali-kali memberikan sesuatu yang mungkin menilai seseorang. Nggak perlu sih kita saling menilai gitu ya. Artinya ketika lawan kita melakukan kesalahan, nggak perlu kita koreksi, biarkan aja gitu ya. Mungkin yang penting sepanjang kita ngerti, sepanjang kita tahu poin apa yang dibicarakannya, ini tentunya lawan bicara kita akan merasa nyaman gitu ya teman-teman. Nah, selanjutnya dari selanjutnya adalah memahami konsep. Ini juga perlu teman-teman nih. Untuk membangun motivasi dan menghilangkan insecurity, kita juga perlu memahami betul-betul konsep apa-apa yang ingin kita bicarakan gitu ya teman-teman. Artinya paling tidak kita terus memantau kompetensi kita, apa nih yang kurang, oh apa yang mungkin belum tahu, apa yang perlu, yang ingin kita ketahui gitu ya. Nah, sehingga kompetensi kita semakin terbangun, kompetensi kita semakin percaya diri kita dalam berbicara, semakin terbuka kita. Nah, kemudian no fear of mistakes, artinya nggak perlu takut salah gitu ya. Kenapa? Salah itu biasa kok gitu ya. Salah itu tuh sebenarnya apa namanya? Salah itulah yang membuat kita belajar, teman-teman. Teman saya bilang bahwa kita belum belajar kalau kita belum pernah salah gitu ya. Artinya salahlah yang membuat kita belajar. Salah itu adalah awal dalam belajar gitu ya. Kalau kita belum salah, berarti kita belum memulai belajar kita gitu ya, teman-teman. Artinya mari kita buat kesalahan. Karena dari kesalahan kita akan belajar gitu. Nah, kemudian selalu keep trying and reflecting gitu ya. Artinya terus coba deh, coba, jangan takut salah, coba aja. Ketemu sesuatu ingin dicoba, pronunciation yang dicoba, jangan takut salah. Lalu refleksi gitu ya. Kita refleksikan, oh sampai di mana nih? Di mana nih ya kekurangan saya nih? Kedepannya apa yang perlu kita perbaiki? Ini yang akan terus membuat kita selalu meningkatkan pemahaman konsep kita pada apa yang ingin kita bicarakan dalam bahasa Inggris gitu ya. Nah, M yang ketiga ya selanjutnya nih. Memilih tantangan gitu ya teman-teman. Artinya tantangan ini perlu kita pilih-pilih gitu ya. Jangan asal terima aja tantangan gitu ya teman-teman. Karena apa? Ketika tantangan ini terlalu sulit, kita juga pasti akan kewalahan gitu ya. Artinya tantangan belajar, tantangan dalam berbicara ini perlu kita atur strateginya gitu ya. Ketika kita ingin mencoba berbicara dalam bahasa Inggris atau kita ingin bercakap-cakap dengan teman-teman, baik itu dalam community, baik itu ketika kita ketemu native speaker, kita buat yang realistik aja deh goalnya gitu ya. Nggak perlu yang muluk-muluk gitu. Yang penting dapat satu kata aja deh, ya dapat satu kalimat aja dulu deh. Nggak perlu banyak-banyak gitu ya. Artinya tujuan yang kita tuju itu yang realistik aja. Yang mungkin one step ahead aja, nggak perlu tinggi-tinggi stepnya gitu ya. Sedikit aja di atas kemampuan kita sekarang gitu, yang kita ingin tuju gitu ya. Yang kemudian knowing passion gitu ya. Kita perlu tahu passion gitu tuh di mana. Apa kesukaan kita ya. Sehingga ketika kita tahu passion kita tahu minat kita, maka motivasi ini akan terus muncul. Karena ini loh yang saya sukai, ini loh yang saya senangi gitu ya. Ketika kumpul dengan teman-teman yang satu passion, tentu rame tuh, selalu rame bahas-bahas apa yang kita sukai gitu ya teman-teman. Nah, kemudian juga find scaffolding gitu ya. Artinya ketika kita memilih tantangan yang lumayan berat, kita coba dulu menggunakan scaffolding dengan bantuan dulu deh. Jangan langsung lepas gitu ya. Ketika kita sudah merasa percaya diri, baru scaffoldingnya kita lepas gitu ya. Artinya kita sudah mulai bisa nih tanpa scaffolding belajarnya. Oke. Nah, selanjutnya M yang keempat nih ya teman-teman ya. Yaitu adalah memberdayakan konteks. Ini sangat perlu nih teman-teman. Agar obrolan kita ramai, obrolan kita banyak gitu ya. Lawan bicara kita tuh asik, ketika kita ngobrol, ini perlu kita berdayakan konteksnya. Artinya jangan jauh-jauh milih konteks di pembicaraannya. Bicarakan yang deket-deket aja gitu. Talk what you see aja. Apa yang kita lihat itu aja yang kita bicarakannya. Mungkin yang belum pernah kita lihat ya nggak usah dibicarakan dulu gitu ya. Artinya apa yang di depan kita aja yang kita obrolin gitu ya. Kalau teman kita mungkin nggak tahu atau nggak ngerti yang belum pernah melihat, kita coba ngobrol tentang itu, kayaknya mungkin responnya agak kurang responsif juga, artinya mungkin akan ada muncul ketidaknyamanan gitu ya. Nah, kemudian juga jangan takut masalah gitu ya teman-teman, karena problems itu are resources gitu ya. Masalah itu adalah sumber belajar kita gitu ya. setiap masalah itu adalah sumber belajar. Kita akan lebih mendapatkan makna belajar kita ketika kita menemukan masalah. Ketika kita menemukan masalah, kita akan berupaya mencari cara untuk menemukan solusinya gitu ya. Nah, ketika ketemu masalah, yuk kita coba nih sama-sama cari solusi. Dari situ kita bisa berefleksi apa yang mungkin bisa kita dapatkan atau tingkatkan gitu ya teman-teman. Ya, selanjutnya juga sharing is solution. Ya, jangan takut teman-teman untuk membuka diri untuk bercerita kepada teman bicara kita. Jangan malu-malu gitu ya. Karena sharing is solution gitu ya. Karena ketika kita berbagi, ketika kita menyampaikan sesuatu apa yang di dalam hati kita, itu akan menjadi solusi bagi kita. Kita akan merasa plong, paling minimalnya pada kita akan merasa nyaman gitu. Ketika kita ada yang bebannya ada di pikiran kita, ketika keluar kita bagi dengan teman bicara kita, itu luar biasa rasa plong yang akan kita temukan gitu ya teman-teman. Nah, selanjutnya adalah membangun keberlanjutan. Ini M yang kelima nih. Ini perlu kita membangun keberlanjutan agar motivasi ini terus muncul gitu ya. Tidak berhenti di situ saja. Yang pertama adalah reflecting for the next gitu ya. Artinya mari kita budayakan refleksi. Besok apa yo yang harus saya lakukan besok nih? Hari ini saya bisa ini, besok ngapain lagi gitu ya. Nah, ini perlu kita bangun. Hari ini saya bisa ini. Hari ini saya merasa nyaman ngobrolin ini, besok ngobrolin apa lagi ya gitu ya. Nah, ini mari kita sering berefleksi sehingga kita akan terus berlanjut nih belajar kita. Upaya kita akan terus terbangun keberlanjutannya. Nah, dan juga yang kedua ini sangat penting juga teman-teman untuk membangun keberlanjutan. Join a community ini sangat penting teman-teman. Ayo kita gabung ke komunitas gitu ya. Ayo kita gabung ke klub, English club, atau kita bangun English club gitu ya. Karena apa? Karena belajar itu nggak bisa sendirian teman-teman. Atau jangankan belajar ngomong pun, speaking pun nggak bisa sendiri. Kita butuh teman untuk speaking. Kita butuh teman untuk belajar. Kalau belajar sendirian tuh belum belajar teman-teman. Kita hanya baru menemukan data gitu ya. Ketika data yang ini belum kita bagi kepada teman yang lain, kita akan belum menemukan makna. Tapi ketika kita ketemu komunitas, saling cerita, kita akan menemukan makna baru yang lebih memperkaya pengetahuan kita. Maka sangat penting nih, teman dalam belajar. Seperti sekarang ini, saya ketemu nih komunitas baru. Saya ketemu Mbak Nadia, komunitas teman-teman Atlas. Ini luar biasa nih. Oke. Selanjutnya juga yang ketiga ini juga sangat penting untuk membangun keberlanjutan. Itu adalah practice is routine. Ini kita coba nih jadikan rutinitas gitu ya untuk kegiatan latihan atau belajar kita bangun sehingga ini akan terus terbangun gitu ya. Selanjutnya
under their glow, your crew is found fit and well for your journey outbound. So we go to the street light and we go under the street light.
Nah, itu teman-teman, itu kita di English Club, di Balai Rakyat English Club ini, itu semuanya campur nih dari si Zia tadi yang baru kelas 1 SD, sampai ibu rumah tangga, itu kita kumpul bareng. Dari anak-anak sampai orang dewasa, kita ngobrol sama-sama. Nggak ada batas antara kita, sehingga kita merasa saling menguatkan, nggak ada insecure lagi, semua merasa termotivasi. Nah, mungkin itu dari cerita saya teman-teman atau Mbak Nadia. Sebelum saya akhiri, boleh saya pantun Mbak Nadia?
Oke, mau berpantun ya Pak ya?
Oke.
Boleh.
Oke. Walking ke Kota Bogor gitu ya. Don't forget to buy talas. pengen belajar bahasa Inggris yang gacor, yuk belajar bersama Atlaz.
Oh, wow, thank you. Cakep ya. Tadi kurang ada cakepnya nih, Pak.
Oh iya.
Oke. Jadi beli talasnya di Bogor ya, Pak ya. Jauh
Iya.
nih, Pak. Oke. Thank you, Mr. Mujib. Tadi the things that I got, salah satunya adalah bagian ya sudah kalau misalnya insecure, that's okay gitu kan. Terus satu lagi harus refleksi gitu ya, Pak ya.
Iya, betul.
Sering-sering refleksi itu sih yang lupa kadang tuh kalau udah kecapean after teaching gitu kan, kayak udah deh gitu, the things that I want to do is laying down. Nah, sampai
Iya.
lupa tuh akhirnya untuk refleksi. Nah, mungkin kita mulai bisa harus make time untuk melakukan itu gitu ya, Pak ya. Oke. Alright, nah selanjutnya ini tadi ada pertanyaan. Nah, ini mungkin tadi pertanyaan yang mau dijawab oleh Pak Mujib nih, gitu ya, Pak ya. Tadi ada pertanyaan tentang gimana kalau misalnya background-nya, keluarganya tuh berbeda dari yang lain gitu, Pak.
Oke.
Gimana cara kita memotivasi anaknya gitu?
Iya, betul. Gimana nih kalau anak-anak kita nih mungkin dari kelompok rentan, kalau menyebut itu kelompok rentan ya. Artinya mungkin yang menengah ke bawah ataupun berbeda dengan yang lain gitu. Gimana
Betul.
motivasinya nih?
Benar. Pak, sebelumnya boleh di stop share dulu, Pak, karena masih
Oke.
ter-share. Oh ya, oke.
Oke.
Thank you.
Siap. Betul. Ya, ini menarik Mbak, teman-teman. Artinya anak-anak kita pasti berbeda-beda ya. Kita percaya semua anak nggak sama. Semua anak tuh pasti beda-beda. Dan jangankan anak-anak, kita pun berbeda-beda gitu ya. Artinya saya juga punya keunikan tersendiri, Bapak Ibu juga punya keunikan tersendiri. Nah, tentunya perbedaan ini tidak kita tidak harus menyamakan semuanya ya. Dengan perbedaan ini kita bisa saling menguatkan gitu ya. Nah, ketika murid kita, anak kita ini mungkin dari orang tuanya mungkin kurang perhatian gitu ya, dan ternyata tidak termotivasi, bahkan semangat belajarnya pun rendah, dan bahkan di kelas tuh nggak aktif sama sekali. Ini juga saya sering ketemu gitu ya. Yang pertama dulu saya bisa mencoba untuk mengenali dia. Ketidakmotivasian atau ketidaksemangat belajar murid kita itu pasti ada penyebabnya. Atau tingkah pola anak di sekolah itu pasti ada penyebabnya. Karena kita percaya setiap ada asap selalu ada api gitu ya. Artinya apapun yang dilakukan oleh murid kita pasti ada penyebabnya. Maka kita perlu menemukan apinya. Kita perlu menemukan kendala atau masalahnya. Dan masalah setiap orang pasti tidak sama, pasti berbeda-beda gitu ya. Pertama kita ketemukan apinya dulu. Kita ketemu masalahnya di mana. Apa yang membuat dia tidak termotivasi gitu. Kita tanya dulu, kita bangun percakapan dulu. Percakapan yang tentunya menguatkan gitu ya. Menghindari dari judging, kita hindari, asumsi juga kita hindari, kemudian asosiasi juga kita hindari, kita upayakan, kita bangun percakapan dengan niat betul-betul ingin membantu dia, ingin memotivasi dia. Kita tanya dulu masalahnya di mana, gitu ya. Saya ketemu murid saya itu yang mana anak saya ngajar di SMP, yang SMP letaknya tuh di daerah pegunungan ya, di daerah mungkin murid-murid saya banyak di daerah yang tinggal di hutan yang jauh, tidak ada listrik, tidak ada sinyal gitu ya. Dan juga banyak latar belakang murid saya itu ada yang orang tuanya berpisah, dan bahkan ada yang dia tinggalnya sama neneknya gitu ya. Orang tuanya berpisah, ayahnya kerja ke desa agak jauh, dia tinggalnya sama neneknya. Dan terkadang dia karena itu tadi motivasinya pasti rendah gitu ya. Kadang ada yang 1 bulan nggak masuk sekolah gitu ya. Nah, dari situ saya coba bangun dulu, tanya dulu, biasanya ya kita biasanya kalau nggak kenal sulit untuk terbuka ya. Saya tanya dia nggak mau bicara, nggak mau cerita gitu ya. Nggak mau cerita agak panjang, mungkin cerita yang singkat-singkat aja. Ketika saya coba gali lebih dalam, gitu ya, ya dia cerita bahwa ini di rumah sama nenek kadang-kadang kasih uang, kadang-kadang enggak katanya. Terus saya tanya apa pengennya nih, apa yang kira-kira membuat yang kamu inginkan apa, yang kira-kira nggak terpenuhi, yang kira-kira yang Bapak bisa bantu apa. Saya coba bantu dia, kemudian saya mencoba menggali lagi lebih jauh gitu ya. Saya mencoba, ingin ketemu dengan orang tuanya. Saya kirim surat minta orang tuanya untuk datang ke sekolah. Orang tuanya nggak datang-datang gitu ya. Orang tuanya 2 kali saya surati nggak datang gitu ya. Karena mungkin entah apa namanya. Akhirnya saya ada kesempatan datang ke rumahnya, ketemu ayahnya, ketemu neneknya, ya ada obrolan panjang. Saya tahu masalahnya di sini, saya tahu masalahnya, saya coba bantu dia. Alhamdulillah sekarang udah nyaman dia, ya, udah aktif gitu ya. Itu sih yang kita coba lakukan gitu ya. Artinya yang kita perlu lakukan adalah kenali apinya gitu ya. Kenali apinya, karena apinya itu berbeda-beda. Kita
Betul.
bantu padamkan apinya.
Oke, terima kasih Pak Mujib. Tadi mungkin Bapak atau Ibu-ibu ya tadi yang menanyakan bisa langsung nih gitu ya mengenali siswanya dulu gitu kan, kita padamkan gitu ya apinya bersama. Oke, nah selanjutnya nih kita mungkin akan langsung cut sesi ini gitu ya Pak ya. Jadi I would like to say thank you so much ke Pak Mujib yang sudah memberikan inspirasi dan juga motivasi kepada Bapak Ibu guru untuk lebih banyak berefleksi, kemudian lebih banyak mengenali siswa juga from the very beginning gitu ya. Oke, thank you so much Pak Mujib. Nah, kalau misalnya Bapak Ibu punya pertanyaan tadi bisa langsung ke Instagram ya. Oke. Nah, nanti bisa langsung dijawab personal mungkin ya dengan Pak Mujib. Oke. Nah, Mr. Mujib, so the things that I would like to ask yang terakhir adalah keyword nih, Pak. Jadi, keyword kita yang kedua dari Mr. Mujib hari ini adalah
Sharing is caring.
Oke, sharing is caring. Wow. Oke. Good. Nah, itu adalah kata kunci kedua. Kenapa nih, Pak? Sharing is caring. Why?
Iya.
Akhirnya itu.
Karena dengan berbagi kita punya kepedulian gitu dengan teman-teman kita. Itu sih.
Oke.
Itu tanda kepedulian kita dengan teman-teman.
Oke, nah itu juga mungkin yang bisa kita aplikasikan di dalam pembelajaran gitu ya Pak, di dalam kelas dengan sharing kepada anak muridnya, itu artinya kayak tanda bahwa kita juga caring kepada mereka, akhirnya mau terbuka nih gitu, akhirnya mau lebih semangat dan ketika semangatnya ada, sudah no insecurity lagi gitu ya Pak ya. Oke, thank you so much Mr. Mujib. Hopefully we can collaborate again soon. Okay, in the future. So now, big round of applause to Mr. Mujib. And I guess, Bapak Ibu semuanya, it is time for us to have our photo session. Nah, jadi kita mau foto-foto bersama dulu nih semuanya. Oke, sekarang saya sudah melihat Bapak Ibunya sudah buka kamera. Ada di belakang sana ya. Oke. Alright. Nah, ini mungkin Bapak Ibu yang ada di daerah tengah atau timur mungkin sudah memasuki waktu sholat. Ya, selamat menjalankan ibadah maghrib gitu ya Bapak Ibu semuanya. Nah, oke. Sekarang kita akan screenshot dulu foto bersama. I would like to count 3, 2, 1, and go. Okay, cool. Now I would like to move to another. Nah, hari ini juga banyak yang di page kedua nih. Jadi saya lihat ada Ibu Lydia, Ibu Hedi. Hai Ibu. Thank you so much for joining us. Terus ada Bapak Victoria juga yang sedang di jalan sambil menyimak. Thank you for joining us as well. Be careful Bapak, hati-hati di jalan. Ya, saya masih coba screenshot juga semuanya. Oke. Nah, Bapak Ibu semuanya, hari ini juga I would like to share bahwa Atlas itu kalau misalnya Bapak Ibu ingin merasakan gitu kan, tidak perlu membeli talas, tapi memakai Atlas. Oke. Bapak Ibu bisa langsung menggunakan promonya di Shopee dengan memasukkan ya kode promonya Atlas 0922. Tadi udah ada beberapa Bapak Ibu guru yang cross check gitu ya gimana sih. Nah, mungkin ini saya bisa share dari kita sedikit ya sebelum kita mengakhiri sesi ini. Nah, jadi Atlas itu bukunya ada dari English Escalate English Play 1 sampai dengan 6 untuk SD dan English Escalate 1 sampai dengan 3 untuk SMP dan English Escalate 4 sampai dengan 7 itu untuk SMA. Jadi ketika sudah masuk di lamannya ini biasanya belum ada tulisan voucher tokonya karena harus dimasukkan dulu. Nah, tadi saya sudah memasukkan satu di keranjang belanja saya dan kelihatan juga ya ternyata ada keranjang belanja yang lain. maaf. Nah, ini bisa langsung ketik di sini. Nah, di bagian ini nanti tulisnya adalah voucher tokonya Atlas 0922. Bisa langsung Bapak Ibu dapatkan potongan harganya begitu. Ini kenapa ke check out semuanya ya. Langsung saya close saja. Alright. Nah, Bapak Ibu ya. Hari ini tadi ada 2 keywords, jangan lupa karena keywords-nya nanti akan dicek oleh Kak Maya dan tim untuk bisa memberikan sertifikat nih untuk Bapak Ibu semuanya. Jadi keyword pertama tadi adalah ya dare to be different dan keyword kedua adalah sharing is caring ya. Jadi hari ini keyword-keywordnya tuh motivational keywords gitu ya untuk kita semuanya. Alright, nah I also would like to remind you bahwa Atlas minggu depan, di pekan depan akan mengadakan workshop 32 JP. Jadi yang sering bertanya kepada Kak Maya dan teman-teman Atlas yang lain, kapan nih ada workshop 32 JP? Nah, itu di minggu depan, Bapak Ibu semuanya. Dan nanti yang kita bahas adalah tentang, akan ada muncul hari ini teasernya di dalam Instagram @hi.atlas gitu ya. Silahkan karena nanti ada early bird price-nya yang sangat affordable untuk Bapak Ibu semuanya. Okay, now before I stop our session, I would like to say thank you. We are going to meet again on our next meeting. Bye-bye everyone. See you. Oke, habis ini langsung di-share present list-nya. Oke, bye-bye. Thank you so much, Mr. Mujib, Pak Kevin.
Okay, my
Bye-bye.
pleasure.
Okay, where's my... There you go.
Atlas. Atlas hadir untuk menyetarakan sistem pembelajaran bahasa Inggris di seluruh Indonesia. Pada generasi saat ini, sangat mengharuskan kita sebagai kaum muda untuk menguasai pelajaran bahasa Inggris untuk membuka jendela dunia dan menaklukkan isinya. Misi Atlas adalah meningkatkan kualitas edukasi di Indonesia dengan memperbaiki materi pembelajaran dan cara pengajaran. Atlas adalah sebuah platform belajar bahasa Inggris yang memadukan kurikulum nasional dengan standar CEFR. Dengan fitur pendukung Atlas sebagai penunjang pembelajaran, kami memiliki fitur assessment, animated videos, lecture videos, interactive materials, Atlas Zone, lesson plan, dan worksheet, teacher resources, dan gradebook. Karena materi kami sesuai dengan kurikulum nasional, maka buku kami juga dapat digunakan untuk sekolah negeri maupun sekolah swasta. Dan dengan kombinasi materi level CEFR, maka murid dapat secara maksimal menguasai bahasa Inggris. Kami memiliki fitur lesson plan yang dapat memudahkan guru dalam kegiatan belajar mengajar. Jadi, guru akan bisa lebih fokus untuk mengajar. Dengan teacher resources yang dapat membantu guru dan mengasah kreativitas dalam mengajar, native speaker kami akan memberikan tips dan solusi agar belajar menjadi lebih menarik. Selain itu, juga ada worksheet yang dapat diunduh oleh guru sebagai bahan soal latihan atau ulangan untuk murid. Ketika murid sudah mengerjakan Atlas secara lengkap, maka murid akan mendapatkan Certificate of Completion sebagai award untuk murid yang sudah belajar menggunakan Atlas. Dengan Atlas, murid dapat meningkatkan higher order thinking skills, real world skills, dan karakter building. Buku kami tersedia dari grade 1 sampai grade 13. Dengan Atlas, belajar bahasa Inggris bisa dilakukan oleh semua kalangan, dimanapun dan kapanpun. Atlas, the next step to world-class education.